I'm Laura Wells. I'm a senior associate in the commercial team here at Mills and Reeve, with a technology sector focus. I advise both private and public sector clients on IT and technology contracts. So anything from IT strategy, software licensing, end user license agreements to full IT outsourcing projects. I also head up the Inspiring Women in Tech initiative from out of our Manchester office, having taken over from my wonderful colleague Sarah Atwood, who sort of built this up. But I'm also part of a wider national team as part of this Inspiring Women in Tech campaign. But enough about the lawyers. What we're all here to do this morning is to speak to this fantastically inspiring woman in tech, the award-winning Emma-Louise Fusari. So good morning, Emma.
Good morning. You're making me
So I'm
blush.
going to let I'm going to let Emma introduce herself properly and her tech company, In-House Health, in a minute, and then I'll ask Emma some questions so we can hear about her journey into tech and do a bit more of a deep dive. So Emma, over to you.
Hi everyone. My name is Emma-Louise Fusari and I'm the founder of In-House Health. So we enable organizations to make a measurable impact on their people, performance and profits by implementing clinically led, evidence-based and data-informed solutions so that they can establish and eliminate the root cause of work-related ill health. So a bit of a mouthful, lots of words in there, but fundamentally helping businesses manage what they would call employee well-being, but what I call work-related ill health, and using data to identify risks and prevent future crises from happening in the organisation.
Thanks for that, Emma. So firstly then, how did you get into tech? Because I'm fortunate enough that I've met you before. So I know that your background was originally in nursing and you were a nurse for 22 years. So you acquired a vast sort of wealth of knowledge and experience in the health sector. So over to you.
Yeah, so how did I end up in tech? That's a really question. I'll try and keep it my answer quite short. But so as Laura said, I'm a nurse by trade, still a registered nurse, and most of my clinical experience was in primary care in general practice. And I was responsible for chronic disease management clinics, for the delivery of public health promotion, public health screening programs. But I was just a bit fed up with the red tape and bureaucracy that is the NHS. And also in my day-to-day job, I was seeing more and more patients when I thought it was too late, when they'd already had a heart attack, a stroke, mental health breakdown, cancer diagnosis, and not really being able to make any meaningful impact on their care outcomes, you know, saying, oh, sorry, Bob, you've had a heart attack. Here's a diet sheet that's 10 years out of date. Off you go and sort your life out, mate. It was not really the reason why I became a nurse. But then I discovered the corporate wellbeing sector and I found an industry that is reactive, fluffy, not measured in any meaningful way. But most importantly, it's having no long-term impact on health outcomes for employees or any financial benefit for the businesses that are investing in it. And then that's kind of how In-House Health was born, because I was like, I think I can tackle this problem and actually properly help businesses to address the need that's out there. We've got the worst productivity since records began, really, as a nation, and that has wider societal impact. So, for example, people on long-term sick. So long-term sickness absence accounts for 30% of economic inactivity here in the UK. So you can see how much of a burden it plays, not just
It's quite a big statistic, isn't it?
Yeah, on individuals, the businesses, but the wider economy. And of course the NHS that is on its knees at the minute. So yeah, real impact on what I'm trying to build. Yeah, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know why I ended up in tech. Yeah, and I'm here to stay. So yeah, so it's all good.
But I think that's really clear, isn't it, from what you experienced in a different setting, in a different sector even, and now what you're trying to do with sort of the gap you've identified is almost then address it at an earlier level, almost the prevention's better than cure sort of standard saying, and then transfer that So starting with employees, you know, a big chunk of us go to work, and then if you can identify and sort things out earlier, then there'll be less pressure on the NHS, and you know, you'll be able to do those things that you wanted to do as a nurse, and hopefully things are less difficult for, was it Bob who'd had his heart attack, if things, you know, if he'd been sorted out earlier.
Yeah, but the issue around most employee wellbeing is that it focuses on the individual, like they are not resilient enough, like they don't have the coping strategy.
I've got a slight
work-related ill health, and that's an organizational problem. So giving people an app to watch when they're stressed is not reducing their workload, is not giving them the right skills to do the job, is not giving them managers that have the skills, the empathy, the emotional intelligence to support them whilst they're having or experiencing challenging times. So I think we are bridging the gap between employer and employee, but we actually start at the top and look at the operational frameworks that are in place to support good employee wellbeing.
It's not just plummeting in sort of tech for tech's sake, in a way.
Yeah.
Thank you. What obstacles then have you faced along the way of getting into tech, and how have you overcome them, or how are you overcoming them if some of those obstacles still feel like they're there?
How long is this webinar? So I mean, of course, the glaringly obvious one is that I'm a nurse and not a technical founder, and developing technology that, it, like you just said, is impactful and achieves the outcomes that I've set and the goals that I've set, rather than just building tech for the sake of building tech, is really important. But with a technical skills gap, that from myself, that's challenging. You know, my whole career was in the NHS, and then I found myself in the tech sector. But that does bring other issues as well, not just the kind of non-technical founder building tech solutions, but a networking is really important when you're building a business. And I've, you know, come out of the NHS into the corporate world and didn't really have a network. So I think I've done really well to kind of get out there, get known, meet people, and I think that is good and bad, because there's a lot of bad people out there as well. There's a lot of charlatans out there. So finding good people in your network is really important. And I've kissed a lot of princes or frogs that never materialized into princes.
Networking frogs, I've not heard them described as that before.
Yeah. So that's been challenging. I've bootstrapped, so you know that means that I've not raised any investment. I've used the small pot of money that I've had to develop the technology and try and get early adopters and paid proof of concepts. That comes with its challenges, because it just takes longer, and sometimes you don't feel like you're moving forward as quickly as you should. But actually, I feel like I'm building in the right way with customers, with early adopters, and building something that people need and want, which is good. Yeah, I think that's the four things. So finding good people, networking, the building the tech, and the financial impact of deciding to build a, you know, proprietary software is challenging.
Yeah, it is challenging. But, you know, you and I met at like a networking event, and, you know, through some of my colleagues. So I think that definitely is a really good way of overcoming obstacles. Like you said, you didn't have the network, but you've gone out there, made the effort and built it. Obviously, in that, it presents its own challenges and obstacles, but, you know, you have been able to overcome it. You know, you're doing things like this, and I know you've spoken at a couple of events for us and other events where I've seen you sort of hosting panels and things like that, which, you know, that is quite like an inspirational thing for me, because it's something that's, you know, not necessarily entirely within your comfort zone as a registered nurse either. So that's a massive sort of upskill and like, you know, new skills and challenges that you've had to sort of learn and present to investors and things like that. So that's really interesting to hear, that the obstacles, but then, you know, the way you've sort of gone around them and overcome them. So thank you for that.
No problem. I think it's really important as well to put your hands up and say, I don't know what I don't know, and use that network, use the people that you've met. So, for example, I'll give you a plug, Mills and Reeve. So, you know, I've had my intellectual property audit done with Mills and Reeve, and that's, you know, intellectual property and technology is really, really important. And I've heard so many horror stories of people that have been scammed or have just not had any knowledge base around it, and lost out on protecting their idea and business going forward. So that for me is showing that there's an obstacle because there's a big knowledge gap there, but using the network, good people to help you to overcome that and make sure that you're protecting yourself as you grow as well in technology.
Yeah, I think that's important, and you know, particularly in sort of IT and tech, protection of software IP is really key, and investors will say it's really key around getting your protections and releasing your IP, and those things at the right time can be something that's really important and something investors will look at. You know, when early stage founders or businesses are pitching for investment. So that's helpful. So with sort of that in mind then, what advice would you give to your younger self embarking on this sort of tech journey that you've come into?
What advice would I give to my younger self? I'm not sure I would change anything, you know, because I'm a firm believer that we learn and we grow from our experiences and our adversities and our challenges, and without them we might not be where we end up. Does that make sense? So I'm not sure I would change anything. If anyone's not heard me speak before, so I actually, despite my Glaswegian accent, I am based in Manchester, but at the age of 17 I got on a bus and moved down here to be a pop star. So I'm not sure, you know, I think I have always just gone for things and had confidence in trying things, not maybe that I have the ability to do it, but actually trying it. So I think if I was to give my younger self advice and my older self advice, is that actually do it sooner. If you've got a feeling, if you've got an idea, don't wait, just do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen is that people can say no, or it might fail, but that's fine. Just pick yourself up and try again. I'm sure that's a Beyonce, the Destiny's Child song. But you know,
I think that links in nicely to what you're talking about before about admitting if you've got a skills gap and sort of filling it. You know, you can go for something and you don't know what you don't know, so you might need somebody else to plug in like a technical skills gap knowledge or something like that. But yeah, I think that plays into that quite nicely, that, you know, be as you are and make no apologies for it, which I like. Thinking then about sort of, we're in this women in tech sphere, which traditionally is more of a male dominated environment. What one thing could be done to encourage more women into technology? Because I think we've discussed before how technology doesn't have to just be you're a software coder. It can be much wider than that. You are a registered nurse and were a practicing nurse for sort of 22 years, and now you're a tech founder. I'm a technology lawyer, so I can't code software, but I understand sort of the intricacies of the software licensing world that some people don't care to either. But yeah, so what do you think could be done to encourage more women into tech?
I know you said one thing, but
I can never. Well, no, yeah, I don't have to limit you.
So I think we have to start younger. So it needs to be getting more girls into traditional STEM subjects. I think there's a lot of discouragement and disengagement, more specifically at the high school age. I think primary school's quite good because it's fun and But when you get to high school, I think there's a lot of teachers that are disengaged from their job, old world values. I'm the mother of two daughters who've been through high school and who have been actively discouraged to take up more boy type subjects like computing. Science was, you know, there was both of them done triple science, so there was some science there. But yeah, so I think more needs to be done to at an earlier age. You know, we talk about football, grassroots football, like it needs to start, like get them young. I think the same has to happen when it comes to technology, considering now that with digital transformation and tech adoption into most areas of our life, it's the future, and we are going to have a huge skills gap in this country if we don't get more people in general into the area. It needs, I think, from an employer's perspective, I think they need to open up their ideas of that you might not be technical, like you said, you might not have the skills to code and develop, but people that are women that more specifically that have worldly experience in other areas, they have transferable skills, and you know, they're bright, they're intelligent, so they can learn new skills. So looking at that, and I think if you're an individual, I think more from the sector needs to be done to let women and girls know that tech isn't just about coding. There's so many other jobs in technology, from, you know, product design and development to you know, data analytics. I know it's more on the techie side, project management, but you know, there are lots of other jobs in tech that isn't just being a coder. And I think a lot of, when I have conversations, certainly to my girls, they're like, I'm not coding. Like, they're like so anti-coding because I keep saying you need to learn to code, and they're like, I'm not coding. And I'm just like, yeah, but you can do something else then. Like, there's lots of variety. So I think it's a three-pronged approach. So get women earlier when the girls interested in the subject. Look outside the box when you're looking for talent to come on board, because lots of women have amazing transferable skills, and more awareness that tech is more than just writing code and producing analytics and stats and graphs type things. So yeah.
Thank you. Coming back to sort of your early stage sort of business journey, what, from your experience, I know you said you've bootstrapped, what do you see, or what do you view as investors looking for from founders for early stage funding, if you've been involved in that sort of process?
So if anyone's got the answer, can they put it in on a postcard and send it
or in the
to
Q&A.
me, or drop me a LinkedIn message. Oh, that is yeah. So I have tried to raise investment, half-heartedly tried. You know, it's a full-time job trying to raise investment, and when you're a solo founder and you're trying to, you know, you're wearing 50 hats already, raising investment is very time consuming. So maybe be a boy. I was like, don't say that, but
Come on, it's meant to be true. Inspiring women into but I mean, the statistics speak for themselves, don't they, around investment into female founded business and female tech businesses?
Yeah. It's 2%, so every 2 pence in the pound, so 2% of VC investment goes to female founded startups, and it's shocking. And do you know what? I'm pretty sick of hearing it year after year after year, and nothing. It's not moving quick enough. I think there's lots of lip service out there to, oh yeah, like women, and it's just like tick box, like what I see about well-being. There's a lot of talking but not a lot of action, and we need to see more money deployed to women. Now that the ecosystem at the minute, you know, there's it's difficult. There's lots of wider economic impact. Money's tighter. So I think from that perspective, you said early stage. So if we're talking specifically about pre-seed investment. I'm not sure it exists at the minute. I think investors are looking for traction, and they're not talking about, 10 people signing up to your waiting list or whatever. They want to see that you have early stage product market fit and that people are paying for your product. So I think, if I was being positive, which I am most of the time until we get on to the investment question.
So we're moving on to a good one next.
It is around get traction, get as much traction as you can, and that will stand you in really good stead. But I've got this quote actually. It is negative, but I think it's quite powerful. Let me get a notebook. I need varifocals, so and it's from a lady called Cindy Gallop, and she was talking about, she is a champion for women in tech and talks a lot about the female investment landscape and stuff like that. But she had a quote, and it's something that's always stuck with me, and it is white men get funded on potential, white women get funded on proof, and not often, even then, and black women and people and women of color don't even get funded. And I think really that it's, I'm saying, investors are looking for traction, but at the same time, I also see lots of men get investment when they have an idea, and it's kind of like, well, it's contradictory. So in general, I think good advice is get traction, look for early product market fit, and be able to demonstrate that you're doing it and you can do it. So yeah.
I was also at an event I was also at an event last week where I got some interesting advice about often founders are so busy sort of looking outward about what they can offer rather than doing the outside in approach of what's the need and what can, you like you were saying about your product fit. So I thought that was an interesting perspective that sometimes people don't remember or don't always think, because you're so busy thinking what we've got is great and it's going to solve all of these problems, but what specific problem can it solve to the people that you need the traction? So that outward in perspective might be a good thing for people to also think about.
I think non-technical founders a lot of the time are very problem focused. So this is the problem and this is how I can solve it. I think, and this is a sweeping statement, but I think a lot of the technical founders are like, I can build a solution because I'm techie, but it's like, well, what to join them both up where this is the problem and the solution, and then show that people identify they have the problem and they want to pay for your solution. I think, it sounds simple, but when you're so focused in it, it's difficult to.
That's a challenge.
You got your blinkers on and you're like, yeah, I can do this, and then it's like, oh yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and then maybe your network connections can fit and things like that.
Yeah.
So this is gonna, I hope, going to be a good one. And I'm looking forward to hearing your answer to this one. What has been your career highlight? And I don't think I'm not going to limit you to just one. If you've got a couple, I'm more than happy for you to share that with us as part of this sort of, to inspire people that are listening.
Okay, so I'm going to focus on in-house health and kind of what I've done in the last few years. And there's a few actually, because I think getting that first paying customer was like, yes, like I just said, I had a problem and a solution and someone was willing to hand money over as an early adopter and bought into kind of what I was saying, bought into me. So I think that's definitely been a highlight. I think working with my customers in general and seeing the impact that I have every single time. So it's not just one, it's just every customer. I'm like, yay, like this is what I love, because I do miss the nursing side, the clinical side, because that's where the impact really happens. But last year, so you did say I won an award, and I've won two now. Not.
I was going to say you've won more than one.
Yes. And you know what? I was like, oh no, I'm not. But yeah, I will blow my trumpet
You
because I think
should, you
women,
should.
that's something we don't do often enough. But last year I was titled or named Innovator of the Year at Computing's Women in Tech Excellence Awards. And for me, that was yeah, it was just a really kind of pinch me moment because I was shortlisted against some incredible women from large enterprises. So in the shortlist there were like women from where were they from? Lloyd's Banking Group, NatWest, Amazon, BT, Transport for London, University of Edinburgh, just like, some women doing really good things in large businesses. And on the night, I think there was 30 awards, and myself and one other woman won. We were the only two that weren't a large enterprise. So to win Innovator of the Year and for people to really see what I'm trying to achieve, and use all that knowledge and experience I've got in technology was just, yeah, it was incredible. In fact, it's not pre-planned. It does always sit here in my office, but this was the award. So it was Computing's Women in Tech Excellence Awards, which was brilliant. And what was really, really nice was last week I was at an event and I was just like networking as you do, and went up, just started talking to this lady. So she was like, did you win a Women in Tech Excellence Award? So I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, I was one of the judges. And I was like, oh, right, because I didn't know who the judges were. They don't tell you, don't give you feedback. It's just like, oh, you've won, type thing. And she said that I think there was 3 judges, and she works for one of the top 4 accountancy practices. Because I was like, I don't know where the judges are from, what knowledge they've got, and she just said like I unanimously won. Everyone was in, and I was just like, oh, that's like, I was like blushing, but I was just like, oh, actually, do you know what? That's really nice that people can see what I'm trying to do,
what you've set out to achieve,
and get that external recognition for it. But at the end of the day, that award doesn't pay my mortgage or my bills, so it is more like back to customers. But yeah, so I think, yeah, there's a few career highlights. So first paying customer, and then getting that external validation and recognition that people can see that you can make a difference and you are the person that can execute on that and deliver. And that all helps with all those obstacles and challenges that I've spoken about, especially the investment piece. So yeah, I'm like, oh,
no, I love it. And that's sort of the question that I wanted to sort of finish on before we go into the Q&A, because, I think you're really inspiring. I've met you a few times. I know what you're trying to do with in-house health, and I think it's really inspirational, particularly your background isn't techie, as we've talked about today. So thank you for that, because I think, those awards really show that recognition and, your acceptance onto different programs that you've been accepted on, I think is amazing. So I've got a couple of questions from the Q&A. One of them is, what would be your top 3 tips for women who want to get into tech?
Ooh. Top 3 tips. So I think, yeah, I mean, I've probably already like touched on these, but I think find a really good mentor, and build a good peer network of other founders around you, or co-workers, depending on, if it's your own business or you're working in tech. And I think it's like the triangle. So find a mentor, find peer, and then be a role model for other women in tech. So that's the first thing. Then I would say what's really important is, don't be afraid to fail. In my line of work, if I'm having a bad time, I just say nobody died. And that's a good day. So even in tech, I'm like, nobody died, like no point stressing, like we can fix things, or we can try again. So don't be afraid of failure. I think losses should be seen as a learn, and just do things differently. And I think the third one, I think you mentioned it, was about being unapologetically you. I think especially in a male-dominated environment, it's easy to kind of be a wallflower and kind of hold yourself back. But I think really you just have to crack on, and if you've got something to say it, and don't really. I mean, this isn't about being disruptive in a negative way, because I used to associate disruption negatively in the NHS. I was always told it was disruptive, and now I'm like, yeah, but that's a good word. But if you want to get ahead, you have to be yourself. I think that's what we'd say. So don't apologize.
That sort of speaks to authenticity as well, doesn't it, around what you want to achieve with your business, and if you're an authentic individual as well. I think that's really, really key. And then one of the questions that's come in is about in-house health specifically, and why the data-driven approach taken by in-house health is better.
So I touched on it earlier, that most well-being focuses on the individual, and it's fluffy, it's reactive, it's not measured. And you will see lots of well-being apps out there that will say, we are data driven, or we're data led, but actually what you're looking at is who's watched, 20% of this group of people have watched a video. It's not identifying the root cause. So I think we're using data in a number of ways. So like I said before, that risk audit, so benchmarking, assessing the operational frameworks in place, and how, are they of quality, are they effective, and giving organizations actionable strategies. But we also collect employee health data with the aim eventually, through the tech development, to predict disease and prevent disease. And for me, you can't do that without the data. You can say, oh, they're just saying that they're stressed. But so I always say, which is the opposite really of how I am as a person, but the data is based on facts, not feelings. And that's really important when you're trying to identify where the problem areas are. And we collect our data through motivational interviewing, through health checks. So the data is as accurate as it can be. It's not self-reporting. So for me, data is about giving organizations the demonstrable evidence that what we are doing is improving health outcomes and improving the financial outcomes for the business, because there has to be a business case for it. I'd love to think that everyone's altruistic and that they care about their staff and they want to do it, but the reality is that they don't. And businesses, I'm a realist, businesses have to make profit to be successful. So yeah, that's why the data is important. It's the tangible evidence that businesses need to say, right, this is actually working and I'm getting return on investment for my spend.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So just to round up then, what I've taken.
I was going to say, I think there's some questions in the
is
chat.
there another one? I've missed that one then.
Questions.
Oh, there's one. Looking back, what one thing would you have done differently? Oh, we talked about that, didn't we? It's almost about, maybe not. It's not quite the advice you'd give your younger self, but is there one thing you would have done differently?
I think I am prone to perfection paralysis, and that don't be afraid of failure is actually advice to myself. And I do wish that I'd just kind of got out, and spoken to people sooner. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I did say everything happens for a reason, and everything's allowed. But yeah, I just think doing everything quicker, failing quicker would what I wish I'd done, because I'm like, oh, I'm a bit down the line now, and I'm like, oh. So yeah, doing it.
But you're
doing it
not
quick.
failing, so that's
No.
good.
Yes.
Another interesting one, actually. What, if any, men in tech have inspired you on your career trajectory?
Oh, nope.
Any men in tech?
uh, I don't know, because like for me, the role models that we get pushed on are like, you know, I've spoken to investors in the past, and they're like, oh well, when Jeff Bezos was setting his business up and it was a bookstore, and I'm just like, what? Jeff Bezos, whose dad gave him 300K to like start a business. It's like the role models out there come from privilege, the male role models, you know. So I'm trying to think. I mean, I have had lots of advice and mentors along the way that have helped me. There's just lots of other founders that are smashing it, male and female, and I'm more admirable of them when I see people that are, so yeah, not you know, I'm definitely not a man hater. In fact, you know, I love men. Don't let my husband watch this on YouTube. No. But you know, it's there's I wouldn't say there's a specific male
Standout male role
role
model for you.
It's just that I think there's good people doing good things a lot of the time, male and female. I just wish the women would get more recognition for it.
And then the last one we've got in the chat box is, I have a 15-year-old daughter excelling at computer science at GCSE, but not excelling in maths. Is it worth encouraging her to keep going with the computer science at A level, or will the maths hold her back? It's sort of quite a personal question.
I mean, I'm not sure on like university and requirements. I think if she's excelling at computer science, then encouraging her in that field. I think it's okay not to be good at everything. Find what you are good at, and she's obviously good at the computer science, so encourage it.
Encourage it. And I think that speaks to what we were talking about earlier, that, you know, encourage women when they're girls, when they're younger, to keep going. And if they've got, you know, a natural talent towards those traditionally STEM subjects, you know, keep encouraging and nurturing that, which I think would be amazing.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's always other support that you can access around other subjects, but I think not putting too much pressure on our young people and allowing them to excel at what they're good at. And she's obviously got a talent for tech, so just keep encouraging it as much as you can.
Great. Well, I just want to say a huge thank you to you for taking the time out to chat to me this morning. A huge thank you to everybody that's joined. And I think for me, what I've particularly taken away from this morning is that a loss is a learn, which I really like. You know, turning your failures into sort of a positivity, like fail fast and then you'll figure something out. And the network frogs, sort of wheedle them out early doors and, you know, build a trusted network of people. And I think that the sort of the mentor triangle that you mentioned around, get a good mentor, have a good peer network, but also be a role model for others. And I feel like that's what I've seen you do, and what hopefully we've done today by sort of giving everybody a bit of a flavour of your journey that wasn't a traditional journey into tech, but is inspiring nonetheless.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you, everybody. If anyone wants to reach out either to Emma-Louise or myself, I think our details were circulated with the invite, but you can find both of us on LinkedIn, and I think things get sent out afterwards to follow up. And also from me, please get in touch if there's anyone out there who wants to be our next Inspiring Woman in Tech. But thank you to our current Inspiring Woman in Tech, Emma-Louise Fusari.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.